All right, I think at this point we can plan to go ahead and get started. So glad to be with all of you today. I think most of you know me, but if this is the first time we're connecting, my name is Leanna Mullen, and I'm over at the central office. I've been with Egg Harbor Township Schools since about 2014. Started at Alder, to my Alder people out there. Moved to the high school in the guidance department, spent some time in the TV studio, and then ultimately now I do everything data. So LinkIt is very much where I live. And yeah, so anything data visualization, anything for those of you who just survived the ASSA, power to you there as well. Yeah, so today we are going to look at LinkIt. For many of you, I realize it's going to be your first time in here. For others who may be involved in an IRS team, I know that you've been had training very recently. So this is going to be a different segment if you were in that training the other day. This is going to be just looking at making sure we can all log in so we're all on the same page and looking at the student hub aspect of LinkIt. There will be more intervention manager training opportunities coming up in the future. You can expect that. But for today, to keep everything simple, we're just going to do the most basic things that I think everyone on this call will have a reason to do at some point or another. So I hope you'll find that this will be meaningful no matter what position you're in the district. But certainly, I think that you'll find that once you're in here, doing the things I'm showing you how to do, it's very simple, and it might make your life a little bit easier knowing that this information is in here. So one thing I wanted to point out, and I'm going to throw it into the chat real quick. I did send an email out to you on Monday inviting you to today's training, and also to let you know that if you're not able to log in or have not had an account created yet, to please fill out a data ticket. The response was wonderful in that I had many. I think I had 40 in the first, I don't know, 2 hours. So I'm still working through the data tickets as it relates to this. If you submitted it on Monday, I can promise that you've gotten a response. If you submitted it Tuesday afternoon or this morning, I had a training for LinkIt myself this morning, so I haven't been able to get through all of them just yet. So if you already submitted a data ticket relating to an account, please know I am still working through them. You can expect without a doubt that you'll have access by tomorrow, where I'll finish all those requests up. So if you do not have an account or cannot log in today, certainly you can watch my screen and get the same information as if you're doing it yourself. And also know that a version of this, it is being recorded, but one version of this or another will be available on my YouTube channel, most likely before the end of the week. So like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will go through this and get started. If LinkIt is brand new to you and you have no idea what LinkIt is or why you're here, I can tell you that LinkIt is doing a lot more than it used to. So LinkIt used to be basically where we house some data, like based on what teachers entered. And then also we evolved into using it for some testing, like our benchmark assessments. But in this school year, we're going to be using it a lot more data points will be in here. Certainly already the NJSLA scores from last school year are already in here, not to mention prior years as well. AP test scores are in here. We have Start Strong when it's available, will be brought into here as well. Also, things like the access test for your ELL students to see those results. Basically, if there was a big data set of information, you can expect that it is being brought into LinkIt. But in addition to that, other things like 504 plans, INRS intervention plans, home instruction information and how that's being tracked, all of that will now live in LinkIt as well. So while we will not really go over those particular aspects just yet today, like I said, you can't expect that to come soon if it relates to you in your position. So first things first, let's make sure we can all get to LinkIt. And the easiest way is you could just go to the district website. Making sure you see my screen while I'm sharing it here. Got this, and then we go from faculty and staff at the top of the toolbar down to LinkIt staff. I'm showing it to you this way because, one, everybody that's on this call is a staff member, but keep in mind this is not how students get into LinkIt. If they're going to be taking a test in LinkIt. They have a special website that's just for them. There's a shortcut on their desktop computers, and that would be the way that they get to it. But for you, you are going to get to it from LinkIt faculty and staff down to LinkIt staff. You may also choose to just save this URL here, which I will also put into the chat for anyone who wants it. Just make that a hyperlink or a favorite on your computer so you can access it anytime you need to. Now, when you get to this screen, hopefully by this point, you've gotten some sort of email indication from me that if you needed an account, you know how to log in. And we'll tell you that your username is most likely the first part of your email address. And then if you have a new account or I had to reset your password is most likely LinkIt with a capital L and a capital I, 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark. I won't drive that home because if you can't log in right now, you're probably waiting on an email from me. So just hang tight on there. I will point out to you, though, that there is an option for sign in with Google. Once you sign in for the first time, you should be able to just click this button. As long as you're on Google Chrome or if your Google account signed in, it should recognize your email address as the same information on the back end. So you don't necessarily have to memorize that password, but you have to use it to get in for the first time. So right now I'm on my desktop and I'm going to ask if you would in the chat, since I realize not everyone has access to a microphone, just give me a Y for yes that you were able to get to the dashboard. Can always count on Casey to be first on the keyboard. All right, looks like we're doing pretty well here. Carmela has a no. Is that it? Are you able to log in or are you having issues logging in?
I'm having issues logging in.
Have you been inside of LinkIt before just now?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to put that ticket that I shared at the beginning into the chat so that you can fill out a ticket and I can make your account hopefully by later today.
Thank you.
Sure. While we're on the subject of tickets, let me just point out to you, if you or anyone else you know says, I can't get into LinkIt, the data support ticket, I'm going to drive home. This is the best way to get my attention because for one, it's the way I have my email inbox set up that puts priority on these sort of messages. But two, the reason why I ask you to do it this way is because there's a series of questions that I get on my side of being able to verify you as a employee in the district, what kind of role you have, including your staff ID number, which yes, I could go get, but it is a very cumbersome process for me compared to you who probably knows where your staff ID number is. And by the time we email back and forth, it takes you about 30 seconds to fill this out where it would take me much longer on my end. And like I said, it just triages your need much faster. So if you cannot log in today, filling out a data ticket's the best way to do it. You can also let your colleagues know if they can't get in. Just generally, it takes up to about 1 school business day. If I'm able to address it sooner, most certainly I will, but that's a realistic expectation is 1 school business day. If you need it after today and you don't have that lovely hyperlink in the chat, there are multiple different ways you can get to creating a data ticket. If you're in Clever, there is an icon right inside of Clever for you to be able to get to it. Also, you'll notice if you are on a desktop computer in the district that there is an icon right on your desktop that you can get to it that way. Or perhaps the easiest, most convenient way might be just to pull up an email that I've sent you at some point, and you'll notice highlighted in yellow is the link to the data support ticket. You can click right on that. And finally, again, if you want to just save it as a URL for the future, the website is https://tinyurl.com/EHT data ticket. You do need that S in there for the HTTPS, so I'm just pointing that out. But that's the best way to get in touch with me about not only LinkIt, but I recently took over OnCourse as well. Some of our secretaries know that that's been a transition that we're moving toward, that I'll be handling anything you might have sent to Carmelita, you will now send to me. And then also Clever. I realize most of the people on this call won't really have a reason to be in Clever, but you might have teachers or students who can't get in which case the data ticket is the way to go. All right. So what I'm going to show you next is the Student Hub. And that is within this dashboard. We're going to get to it together. So actually, before I show you that, I'm going to show you one other thing that might be helpful to everyone who's on this call. It's just to be able to troubleshoot some things that you might see or you might hear a teacher say. So first, I'm going to show you the user management. User management is right next to the help button at the top. It's like a little folder with a wrench or something. I don't pretend to know tools. If you click on that and then go to manage classes, this will give you an overview of which classes are brought in from Infinite Campus over to LinkIt. Not every single section in Infinite Campus comes in here. So this is a very quick way that you can tell if that class is populating over like it's supposed to. Maybe you have a long-term sub in your building, or you made some scheduling changes for those secretaries who are involved with that. This might be a quick way to see that that's working properly. Also, too, if there's a new student or something like that. So when you're under managed classes, everyone on this call is getting school admin rights. So you should be able to select your school and then choose a teacher within that school. Let's go with, let me think. Go with, and I know she's ELL, and hit apply. And now you can see all the classes in the 22-23 school year. These should be coming over exactly like you see in Infinite Campus. Those are the course names. And if you need to see the students, you click on the little pencil for Manage Current Students. And those are the students assigned to this section. Now, here's an important thing. Even if you're trying to help, please don't manually add or subtract any students in LinkIt. We have it synced on the back end in Infinite Campus. And if you make any edits in here, most likely it's going to get overridden the next time we have a sync, and any work you may have done will just not happen. So if you think that this is not working properly, please put a data ticket in so I can take a deeper look. But this might be helpful if you just need to get a quick gauge of what class sections are coming over and who are in these classes. This is particularly important because teachers are linked to their students. So if you are creating an IEP 504, you notice none of our self-contained teachers are on the list. Oh, thank you for pointing that out, Patty. Let me see if, I feel like they should be in there. Like we should be bringing them in there. So let me do a little research on that. But thank you for letting me know. Because as some of you may know, there is a separate part of the Infinite Campus side, like one of the section tabs. I have to get their teacher code and their ID number in there. So let me just check a little bit more on that part. So that is the managed classes. You could also see managed staff. You do have building admin rights. So if you needed to see any staff members to see if they have accounts or not. But again, leave those account creations to me, please. Thank you. Moving on, I'm going to have us go into reports. So this is actually why we're on this call today, is to go into the Student Hub, which is inside of reporting. So the reporting icon is this chart up at the top corner, and you're going to click on Dashboard. Okay. I've noticed today LinkIt's a little laggy, so just give it a second if it's taking a long time to load. Now, I am not going to spend a lot of time on this aspect of reporting because I do not feel it's necessarily relevant to everyone who's on this call. This is going to be more related to intervention teams. It might be, well, it's definitely going to be the teachers, classroom teachers who would want to see this. If you're comparing like a large data set at the same time. But most likely, if you're here today, you're only going to be looking at one student at a time. So that's why I'm going to skip this part. If you're interested in having a training on this area later, like you may want to see what the how they did on the Form A assessment, like the overall group or a specific segment of a group, like we could go into a whole rabbit hole with just this part. But for today, I want you to see that Student Hub is up here in the top left corner. This is where you're going to go for looking up one student at a time. So when you click on this, you should see that most likely by default, this is going to be a blank screen for you. So before I keep going, give me a 5 if you're able to get this far. For those of you who can log in, obviously. All right. Thank you all. So you'll see that it's already set to this school year, but really in reality, you could go back to other school years. Again, for the purposes of what we're doing today, we're just going to leave it on this school year. You should be a building admin, so you should most likely have it already selected, but if you do have a drop down, then you're just going to choose a school that's most aligned to you. Let's go with Fernwood for this part. You can also filter by grade and look at a specific grade. You could look at it with a specific teacher and their students and even their class from here. So this would be one way that you can get to the student that you're looking for. Once it loads, it should work. Well, he doesn't teach 6th grade, so maybe I should do 7th grade instead. Let's try that. There we go. Or if you know the specific student you're looking up, you could type in their last name here and they should come up. Whichever way you go, there's no right or wrong answer, but that's 2 ways you can get out, either by filtering all the way down or typing in that student's name. Then when you go to hover over a student, you'll see that a little green icon appears anytime you're right next to a kid. So if you're doing one student at a time, you can choose the student that you're choosing to look up and click on that green icon. And then it should bring you to a screen that looks probably something like this. I'm actually going to go back to the default view because yours more likely is going to be organized in this sort of way. And what you'll notice is depending on the student that you just picked is how much data they may have in here. So if they're a relatively new student, they just transferred in, they may not have any data in here. If they came in last year or compared to a student who's been in the district since kindergarten, we don't have data that goes back quite that far, but you're probably going to see multiple years of data available for most students. And the way that you can review this is you can actually click on any of these drop downs to be able to see the data points that are in here. I myself find this organization, the way that it naturally comes, to be a little disorganized for my liking. So when I'm on this page, you'll notice that in the top right corner is like an expanded view button. So I would click on that and then group by year. So then I'm just looking at what they've done in 22, 23. Maybe I want to expand 21, 22, but I don't need to see them go all the way back this far. And this would give you the score and how they did. It's also color coded, so you get a visual indication of how, if they're meeting or exceeding, or if they need additional help. You get a very quick indication of that. You also can filter this down a little bit more. So maybe you want to filter it by a subject and just choose language arts. So now it collapsed, and I'll have to expand it back out. And all these data points are related to ELA. You might be thinking, so why would I be? I received an access denied message when you clicked on a student. Is it possible that LinkIt has this really bad habit of logging you out very quickly? Could you try to log back into LinkIt and see if you can go through those same steps again, Emily, to answer your chat? But for everybody else, to get to the point of why are you actually doing this, the point here may be you might be having a meeting with that student. You might be their guidance counselor. You might be their case manager. You might be a secretary who's helping print out some of this documentation, or you could be helping the student gather documents for them to transfer out. Really, depending on your building and how you operate within departments is really how often you may be doing this. But I think it's really important to know how to print out these reports in case you have to give it to a kid, or you have to go into a parent meeting or an IEP meeting or something like that. So you can choose what you want to filter down to and what you want to expand out. You also could show well, maybe not in this particular view, but moving on from here. If I click print current student, for me, it comes up. I know you can't see it because of the way I'm sharing, but there's a printable view that you'd be able to have and hand to that kid and be able to see what their assessment scores are. Oh, good. Will we be losing scores in the assessment tab of IC? I noticed most recent scores have not been. Casey, which assessments are you talking about?
So like, oh, it's echoing.
Probably because I'm. There you go. You there?
Okay.
You know why? Because if you're in the same room with somebody, Casey, the other person might have to turn their volume down in order for you to talk.
I noticed that previously the park scores, so like that's I just pulled up the kiddo, and like under assessments in Infinite Campus, we used to put their park scores there. Are we not doing that anymore and putting them just in Infinite Campus?
Yes. So what actually happens is when the park scores or NJSLA, whatever we're calling them these days, once the scores become available, I get a full like CSV crazy big download that I can then get into LinkIt. And this is the best way to get the information in there into one consistent place.
So I think that's what Casey was saying. This will now be here instead of Infinite Campus.
Yes, correct. I don't think we're necessarily losing old data. Like if it's been in there for a long time, you might still have access to the old ones, but this will be definitely the most current for sure. And that'll also have more of it. So like you're not just looking at, okay, 2019, yeah, probably pre-pandemic-ish. This is going to be, and actually, if you notice, we actually have for this kid, like it goes back to 18, 19, we brought in data, I think that's as far back as 5 years ago. So even some data that might have been in IC, you may notice is also populated in here. But without a doubt, like I said, we have AP tests in here. We have SAT tests. I know that doesn't really affect this group per se, but your Start Strong, your LinkIt form benchmark tests, like the ones they take in ELA and math, and also teachers who make their own tests, which you'll see more of that happening because training is happening around that right now too. Any of those data points are going to be available in here, and you can do a quick printout and be able to see that. Also, bringing up that point of the 504s and the home instruction and everything else, this particular button is not here today, but it's supposed to come out in the next couple of days. So I kind of wish their timing was a little better. I was hoping they had a big update last week, so I was hoping it was going to be in that update. But you'll see data portfolios and charts is up here in the top right corner. Soon, there will be another button that says File Gallery. And if they have an RFA, if they have an intervention plan, if they have a 504 home instruction, whatever that might be, you'll be able to get a quick look, a printable version of that document that you could bring up and meet with a student about or provide that documentation to a parent or something like that. So that is coming soon. You can still get that information, but it's just not as pretty, and you have to be inside the intervention manager side of LinkIt to get to it. Let's see. So Casey, did that answer your question? I know she's typing probably. So that is basically the main takeaways of what we want you to know today. So I'm going to go through the same process of how I got here, just at super high speed in case you're following along and want to try it yourself. All right. So logging all the way back out, I'm back on the district homepage to be able to get to LinkIt. Remember, we're going to go to faculty and staff and go down to LinkIt-staff. We're going to sign in with our credentials up here, or you can click on the sign in with Google button. Either one should work. All right, and we will click on your login. Right here, takes a moment. To get to where we just were, that was under reporting. So we will click on reporting and then click on dashboard. By default, you're going to be on the most likely your buildings district. Mine says District Explorer, but it would probably be School Explorer or some building. I forget what the exact term says up here. For today's purposes, we're going to skip past this and go right to Student Hub. And here in Student Hub, you would either filter down to the kind of students that you're looking for, make sure that you're selected on the correct school. So we'll do Miller this time since we're playing with all the schools here, maybe all of 4th grade. Hit apply. And then you're going to select the student that you need just by hovering over them and clicking on the little icon that appears. Now, this student does not have very much data in here at all, but like I said, depending on how long they've been in the district and what assessments they've taken or what kind of tests they've been involved with is what they would see here. And then if you need to print it out, it'd be here too. I did not go into a lot of detail that you could actually expand this views even further. Like for the NJSLA, you can see that this student is not meeting, but if I click on detail, I could see more specifically what areas they may need more help on. If I look at maybe a different version of the same thing, this is probably a better explanation. So some aspects they're near expectations, where these areas they are below expectations. What we don't have enough time to do today, but it might be helpful for you to know, is you could group students together. So if you were to look at your district view or your building view and you wanted to categorize students, all the students who are not meeting expectations on a certain test, that you can meet with those individual students or help them provide interventions or whatever that might translate to you in your role. But those are opportunities to you. And if you don't want to get into this level of detail, certainly you could collapse it, or you can also filter to just the information you need to provide. We are expecting that in the future, I don't have a date yet, but it's possible that at least for the secondary level, students will soon be able to get in and see some aspects of their data. Right now, no student can see this information. All that they can do is type in the assessment code if they're taking like a benchmark test, but they actually cannot get into the back end of this. Only staff members can. And as I mentioned to you, the teachers can only see students that they have, either their current students, or they can actually go back and see students that they previously had if they're in the same building. Like if you had a 4th grade student and they roll up to 5th grade, then they would be able to follow and track them. But once they go over to one of the middle schools, they're not going to continue to see them because they no longer have access. They're not in the same building. So that is basically what I wanted to show you today. So I'm just going to open up the floor. I'm going to stop presenting and ask if anyone has any questions at all, anything that unique to your role that you think would be helpful to have explained or anything like that. I do recognize some of you probably have to type, so I'll hang out for another second on that. Alrighty. Well, I will continue to hang out if anyone does want to ask anything separately from the group, but I won't hold you up any longer than this. So thank you all for coming. And remember too, if you have any problems at all, please fill out that data ticket. If you filled it out recently, I will get back to you soon. Other than that, have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you next time.